Hi, I'm Turner.
And I'm Will.
And I'm Bailey. And this is Indian Hen Outdoors. Today we're going to be confronting, debunking some shotgun myths, some things that you may not understand when it comes to patterning and how wide the pattern is and how great or little the distance, the effective range of a shotgun really is. So we're going to look at that as it pertains to some hunting situations and also self-defense. So let's get to it. All right, so for starters, we're going to go through the different chokes we have here. And Will, you want to explain what a choke is exactly? What does it do?
So choke is something that is now interchangeable on the end of your shotgun. You can threads in, threads out, changes the diameter of which your shot is placed, either making it more restrictive or less restrictive. Here we have 5 examples. We have smooth bore, improved, modified, and full, starting at least restrictive and most.
And what Will said, what's happening here, and in the old days, a lot of shotguns, the barrel itself was tapered or restricted. And what this does is the more restricted it is, the tighter your pattern is, the longer it takes for the pellets to spread apart downrange. So typically, this is we got a Rete Masai Mara. This is a little nicer waterfowl gun. So it comes with a lot of chokes. If you're wondering what kind of choke you have and it doesn't have any markings on it, if you can zoom in where you can see these teeth on it? These are markings. So the more markings it has, the wider it is, the less restrictive. So a skeet choke, which is slightly more restrictive than the barrel alone, it's going to have 5. Next up, 4, and on to a full choke, which only has 1 mark on it. Now, more restrictive than the full, you have some, like waterfowl companies, they'll make an extra full, or what they call a waterfowl choke, or then a turkey choke that's even more restrictive.
Now, to go along with that, even with this standard full that comes with the shotgun, it specifies do not use with steel shot, because steel shot, while it's predominantly used for waterfowl hunting, it doesn't condense, it doesn't bind on itself, and so it doesn't allow for it to easily flow through that much of a restricted space. And so what you'll have is expansion of your choke. It'll bulge up against your barrel. And there are instances where that could be catastrophic to your barrel life.
Yeah, so I cover this. If you want to get a little more nerdy on this, go back and look at our video, the budget waterfowl shotgun, where I'm looking at the old J.C. Higgins, and I kind of cover that a little more at length about what happens when you restrict steel shot too much. But what we're going to do, this is going to be just a control so you can get an idea of shotgun patterns with each chokes. We're going to do 15 yards and 30 yards starting out, and we're going to do a benchmark with just the barrel, just cylinder, no choke in it, and then we're going to work through the chokes, and you can see the pattern difference at 15 and 30 yards. So also, it's worth noting, we're going to do just the barrel like I said, but we're going to use this smooth bore, this Yield single barrel, because it's not threaded. If your shotgun is threaded for chokes, that's why this Masai Mara has an extra skeet choke that's almost like the cylinder bore, is that you do not shoot it with a choke out of it, because it can actually damage those threads in the shotgun. So if your shotgun has threads, to use a removable choke, always have a choke in it so you don't damage the threads. We're going to use a couple different shells in a minute. We'll do a little experimenting, but for now, as we go through these chokes, we're just going to use the same ammunition for every one. This is just some regular 8-shot, 1 ounce Remington Dove loads. So 2 3/4, nothing special, pretty standard run-of-the-mill bird shot. So bottom left.
Bottom left. All right. That's where the left is at after this election.
All right, yield is at 15 yards.
I'm in danger.
Remington ammo.
That's pretty tight. Definitely
Okay.
tighter than I thought it'd be.
So this is wadding, and it looks like we got most of the pellets on the target and a few flyers. That's about all. That's probably the furthest flyer that I see on these two sides. So maybe a 15-inch spread.
We
You
have
can tell I'm left.
a problem with our control. Bailey, is the yield a full choke?
I don't think so.
Didn't it say something turkey?
Oh, it was made in Turkey.
Oh, turkey. I was
made
thinking.
in
I was
Turkey.
thinking turkey hunting.
No. Anybody got it? Anybody got any change?
What are you, poor or something?
No.
I got some in the truck.
Yeah, to do that. No, to see what this barrel, our control is not controlling. We got to do the dime test. What do the online forums say?
So everybody online, which everything online is true, says modified-ish, according to all the forums. Yield is, nor Academy's website says what it is. So
We're gonna call it a Turkish
I'm gonna
modified.
call it a Turkish modified. Best of luck to all you Yield is fans out there. Yeah. Now kiss.
Oh.
Okay, so it's really only more noticeable on our outliers.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Just a little more controlled and concentrated. Which, I mean, that's what you expect as you get tighter in your chokes, but it's not as noticeable as I thought it would be.
Yeah, not a wild difference, but you are right. The oak are our furthest ones. What do you think? 18 inches versus 20 inches, maybe?
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, wow.
We're headed in the right direction now.
So, here to here, small step. Here to here, big step. You can see we've got, oh man, what do you think? Less than a third of our pellets off of the paper?
Yeah, and probably we're getting down to if that's the furthest flyer, maybe 13 inches from here to there.
I didn't bad at all.
So we need to.
Yield is.
I was gonna say yeah. So
Well, now we
therefore,
know what the yield is.
all right. So our control is not the control. The what do we call it? The Turkish modified.
The Turkish modified. In the
We're
yields.
roughly looking at a 15-inch group, for whatever that's worth. So, cylinder bore, which would be if you had a normal shotgun with no choke in it. Obviously, like we said earlier, it's threaded. This may be a tiny bit more restricted than some cylinder bores, but nears makes no difference. For it, we're looking at roughly a 24.5. That's 27. We'll split the difference. We'll say a 25-inch circle. Let's go up to the improved, around a 25-inch circle, going up to the improved at 15 yards. We're gonna call it nears makes no difference. I got 23 and 22. We'll call it around a 22.5-inch circle. We're gonna say 17.5 by 15.5. We'll say roughly a 16-inch circle. So we restricted from a roughly 25-inch circle at 15 yards all the way to a 15-inch circle. So next up, we're going to do a full choke at 15. Full choke at 15 yards, and you can see it's a hand-sized pattern basically, and it put the wadding right through the center of the target. You're looking at like 10 inches to a foot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the same thing with all these chokes, and we're going to back it up to 30 yards. So
Well, you can just about count them in the black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in the black.
Slightly better.
It's slightly better. It's hard to tell just on this paper, but for this whole quarter section, it's much more on here.
Still a whole quarter section of pellets.
Yeah, we're stretching the whole paper.
Yeah,
But I mean,
and we still got
you still got enough.
roughly what 30 pellets or so
Yeah.
in the black.
Yeah, and if we're talking about dove hunting, so
Doves.
Yeah, you'd have got him. I think he would have been wiped out. It amazes me just how, you know, we basically doubled the distance.
yeah.
And we've gone from, well, this, you know, as the last 15-yard shot being a full to that.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
Full choke at 30 yards. We're still 3/4 of the way of the quadrant, you know, 25-inch circle, roughly. You can see between it and the modified, you know, got a little more pellets in here. So the point I want to make with this is only 30 yards. We've reused the paper, that's why that says 15. But this is 30 yards with a full choke. If you're dove hunting or pheasant or whatever, look how much ground you are covering with a full at 30 yards. So this is, again, it's 8-shot. It's 1 ounce. It's a really light load. However, you know, people are scared to use the full. You know, most people use an improved. And look, I like a modified. Most of the time I use a modified. But if you're out on a big field, do not be scared of the full choke. I cannot stress this enough because, again, this is only 30 yards. And this should also help you understand how far you can effectively shoot at game. Because how many times have we been out there and we're like, oh yeah, I can reach that bird. And it's really 45, 55, 60 yards away. And good luck trying to hit it. Especially if you're using improved or a cylinder bore.
Yeah, this is for me has been a real eye opener because, you know, I've waterfowl hunted for a few years now, and I've never really took the time to pattern and see what my gun is truly capable of. Granted, we are just shooting dove loads, but with the chokes that come with the Rite, the tightest one you can use with steel shot is the modified. And seeing what the actual limitations are of the modified at just 30 yards, I've come to realize, like, I was shooting at birds I never had a chance at hitting.
Yeah.
And nothing against the modified, it does what it's intended to do within its limitations.
And that's why it's a hard conversation, because you get into that, how serious are you about waterfowl hunting and where do you waterfowl hunt? If you're like us in Mississippi and you're just hunting a bunch of backwoods sloughs, you may never shoot more than 40 yards, and you may be predominantly shooting at, you know, woodies and gadwall, you know, and the occasional up-close mallard. If you're out further north and you're doing, you know, hardcore duck hunting, unless they are just coming into your spread, which, again, ideally, if you're out in the open, that's what you want. If you're in big timber and you're trying to take these marginal shots of 40 yards, there's a conversation for, yes, bismuth is really expensive. But if you go up to bismuth, you can drop a shot size, which means more pellets, and you can constrict it just as tight as lead. You can use full. Some people use extra full on bismuth, and there's no issue with it. So it's really expensive. But it's kind of, what do you want to do and how serious are you? And how often do you have shots that are marginal? Where are you hunting at?
Yeah, if you're hunting flooded feed fields, you might want to look into it. And then also we run into the topic of being ethical. It's like, am I willing to spend that little bit extra, well, not a little bit, nearly double, if not more, for the bismuth to be more effective, have more clean kills on my targets?
So we're just going to do a little bit of testing, just see what happens. We're going to 30 yards again. We were leaving the full choke in it because you see how wide the pattern is. And we've got what we've been shooting, which is a 1 ounce 8-shot. We've got a low target load, low velocity, low brass, whatever you want to call it. We have a 7.5 ounce and an 1/8 shot. We'll try. And then we've got 1 1/4 ounce Texas Game Load, 1340 feet per second. This is the hottest of the three. And we'll see if there's any real difference in pattern at 30 yards with the full choke. 1 ounce shot, 30 yards. All right. 1 1/8 ounce shot, 30 yards. The spicy meatball. That has a little more pop to it. So you shot. Oh!
1, 2, 3.
Well. All right, we're clear, right?
Yep.
So 30 yards full choke. 1 ounce 8 shot. I ain't got my tape measure. Your circle, kind of like that. You can see the target.
About 24 inches, I reckon.
We got a little off,
A little low, but
a little tighter. This is 7.5
Tape
ounce
measure
and
right
an 1/8. The Texas Game Load. Look at this. The proof is in the pudding, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I'd like to be, but this is the Rio Texas Game Load. I always use this dove hunting, and you see why. This, I mean, compare the two. This is, and again, this is not bad ammunition. It's Remington, but compare the amount of pellets between the two at 30 yards. So
A few moments later.
they're letting me drive.
So now, this was a conversation that started between me and a coworker, and it actually started with alligator hunting. And if you haven't seen that video, go check it out.
Excellent video. Sam lost a finger.
Sam lost a finger. That did happen. True story. That's not clickbait. So we kill, harvest. We got to be politically correct. We harvest.
You don't got to. Trump won.
So you bring the alligator to the boat, and basically it's at point blank range. You hit the certain spot that their Achilles heel, the soft spot on the back of their head, and we just use like bird shot and a 410 shotgun. And somebody heard that and was like, "Well, you're shooting an alligator. You know, I'd want something like buckshot or something." And that brings about an excellent point. As you've already seen with the patterning, things are not always what you think they are in shotgun world. So realistically, if you're in a home defense situation, well, Bailey, what is, if you have to draw your firearm, whether it's pistol or your shotgun in your home, what is the average distance that scenario takes place?
So as far as data that we have from encounters, whether they be law enforcement or civilian, the average self-defense situation happens within 21 feet, so 7 yards. So we are talking about, again, and that's the average. That's the farthest point is 21 feet. So if we're going to be at the farthest point, everything else generally happens closer. So the evidence you're about to see is going to be just even more exaggerated the closer you get. So if we were talking about a home defense situation, you got to think about your house. What is the furthest distance that you can stand in your house? You know, you might have a real long hallway, but probably about 7 yards is going to be accurate for most homes in the United States. It's before you have a turn or a wall or something like that.
Even if you have a mansion, you've got different rooms, hallways, you're probably never going to have a situation where you're shooting at an intruder further than 7 yards. So again, we've got the same 3 shells that we used earlier. We have a 8 shot 1 ounce Remington. We have a 7.5 ounce and an 1/8 dove load, and then we have the Texas Game Load, which is 1 1/4 ounce high velocity, 1340 feet per second. And we're at 7 yards, and we're gonna see what they do with a. This is just a cylinder, and we have tested this one unlike the ELDs. This is a cylinder with a 18.5 inch barrel. This is a Winchester 1300 specifically for home defense. It's got the long tube on it. So we're going to take 3 shots at 7 yards and see how it patterns. basic, some of the most cheap shotgun shells you can buy. 8-shot, 1 ounce. Imagine that in the center of an intruder. This is the 7.5-inch dove load. This is the almighty Texas game load. Look at that hole. So my point I want to make is everybody gets double-aught buckshot. I want double-aught buckshot in a home intruder, and it's very powerful. Double-aught buckshot only has 9 pellets in it, so you better be a dang good shot. Home intruder situation, self-defense, your adrenaline is spiking, you're operating off muscle memory, there is no room for error, and you're relying on 9 pellets versus this. So I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments. You're going to be dead. I'm sorry. You can at me in the comments. You can say this isn't a heavy enough load. If you shoot somebody in your house with this birdshot, they will be dead on the floor.
And guys, we're not arguing that it's like, oh, you should always use this over buckshot.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that if all you have or all you can afford, times have been hard. We've talked about that on the channel before.
Yeah.
We talk about a lot of budget items because we've been there. A lot of days we're still there.
Yeah.
If all you can afford is birdshot or can't get a hold of buckshot or whatever reason, there's no excuse to not have your shotgun loaded. If it's loaded with birdshot and somebody breaks in, hey, it's a lot better to sharpen stick, as example by here. It'll still kill somebody.
And I would think, again, I would say, I'm not even going to say, first of all, to your point, if that's all you can afford, use it. The point I want to make, and I don't see a lot of it, I don't see people using it, about number 4 buckshot. There's number 4 shot, but if you can find number 4 buckshot, and I'll put the number of pellets on the screen, but I can't remember, it's buckshot. My grandfather killed every whitetail that he has ever killed in this world with number 4 buckshot. It is very lethal, and I'll put the number of pellets on the screen because it escapes me. And you have this versus 9 pellets. And again, high pressure situation, close range, you want to stack the deck in your favor, and you want that first shot has to count. You don't want to hit crown molding and air and not your intruder. So
Food for thought.
Food for
your
thought.
Defensive needs.
So thoughts, wrapping up. I know I'm going to get blasted in the comments about my comments about double-aught buck, but what are y'all's thoughts on today's findings?
Yeah, it was great. Like I believe I said previously, this was an eye-opener even for me, just actually putting pellets on paper, seeing what is effective at what distance, what shot with what choke and everything, and everything within its limitations performs very well for what it's intended to do.
Yeah.
But you start getting outside of that scope of its limitations, you start limiting yourself.
And that's something I found out the hard way, and I didn't find it out for sure until I patterned my gun and I started really diving into shotguns and nerding out. Once you get past that 15-yard mark, I mean, I think the measurements even reflect that. The amount of spread in your pattern effectively doubles between that distance of 15 and 30 yards. I mean, we're talking about going from what 10-inch circles to 20-inch circles with the full,
absolutely.
something thereabouts.
Absolutely, and I would agree. I would agree with Will. Of it shows two things to me. Of hey, look, if you get the Rios in a full, man, yeah, you can smoke them down at 30 yards.
Yeah.
But you're still capable with cheaper ammunition off the wall stuff from Walmart to make effective shots. Yeah. You got to know your limitation of I can't stretch out there to 45 yards with my Remingtons, but it's all, again, like Will said, it's all relative. Really cool. And to Turner's point, pattern your shotgun. We bought construction paper. Go to Lowe's, Home Depot, or whatever. Get some construction paper. Pin it to a tree, pin it to some stakes, whatever you need to do, but pattern your shotgun so that you know what you have and what you're doing. As far as the home defense stuff goes, look, we're not trying to stir up stuff. We're trying to point out that use what you've got. Take care of your family.
And even pattern that.
Even pattern your home defense gun.
Yeah.
If you're like, hey, I got to have that double-aught buck, well, pattern it. That way, to Turner's point, when you're groggy, you're sleepy, your heart rate's elevated, hey, I know how much my double aught buck spreads. And you may find, man, that's not a lot of spread. I could go to a rifle because that's not enough spread. I might as well use my AR. Or I want to go to birdshot because I do want a little more spread.
Or a handgun.
Or a handgun. Again, our point is shoot your guns, get out, find out what they do, have a good time. Make some people mad on the internet.
Exactly. As always. And it's way cheaper to take an afternoon with some construction paper and targets than to continually burn through cartridges and shells and not really know what's going on and why you're missing. So I think that about wraps it up for today. Let us know what you think in the comments. I know you're going to anyway, as you are all experts. Until next time, I'm Turner.
I'm Will.
And I'm Bailey.
God bless you, and thank you for watching Indian Hen Outdoors.
Comment down below your first shotgun.
Yes! Thank you so much for watching. The video's over. This is just something that I like to do. It's a word of encouragement and an opportunity for me to share my faith. At the time of this video, Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and the holidays can be a really dark time of year for a lot of people. We find ourselves hustling and bustling and trying to make it to everybody's family gathering and make sure everybody can be at everything, and just trying to keep peace at the dinner table can feel like a monumental task. And we've missed the point. It's literally in the name of what Thanksgiving really is. Let me give you an example. I've been studying the book of Daniel. And Daniel, all throughout this book, has been given several tests that he's been allowed to go through by God. And as he's passed these, people have witnessed how he responded to these situations, and lives have been changed by it. So later on, we find Daniel, now an old man, living in the kingdom of King Darius. Now, King Darius actually likes Daniel. He thinks very highly of him and has given him a lot of responsibility. This makes other people in the kingdom very jealous. So these other governors and leaders of the time conspire against Daniel, and they more or less trick King Darius into passing a law that if anybody worships anybody or any god other than King Darius during a certain period, they will be put to death. Now this is a problem because Daniel's a Hebrew and he worships the one true living God. And of course, the trap has been set. Daniel is caught praying, and he is brought to King Darius, and he must be put to death. Now here's the part I want to talk about today. What Daniel did next, how he prayed. He prayed a prayer of thanks. He rejoiced to God. You see, we are supposed to rejoice in everything. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 tells us to rejoice in all things, for this is the will of God. So Daniel, faced with the fact he is about to be thrown into a pit of lions, which was meant to torture and kill him, he doesn't try to get out of it. He doesn't deny what he's been doing. He prays thanks to Almighty God. He doesn't know that he's going to be delivered, but he trusts the will of the Father. And of course, we know how the story is. Daniel is famously delivered from the lion's den, and he is unharmed the next morning, which King Darius sees that Daniel worships the one true living God. So that's the challenge this week. As we come up on Thanksgiving, I challenge you, when you pray, start off with thanksgiving. Don't start off with, God, you're not going to believe what happened to me today. We're supposed to pray for others and pray for our family and pray for those in need, but we are also told to rejoice. We are told to pray thankfully. So that's the challenge. If you haven't been doing that, try starting off every time you pray before you get into the trials of life. Pray a prayer of thanks and thanksgiving and see how it changes your life. God bless.